Finland did something that shocked all of Europe. While many countries argued, delayed, and hesitated, Finland made a single decision that changed everything. It did not rely on speeches, promises, or emergency meetings. It acted quietly, firmly, and without confusion. That decision ended an immigration crisis almost overnight, not slowly, not partially, completely. If you stay until the end of this series, you will understand why this moment may reshape how Europe handles immigration forever. Deep in the north of Europe, where forests stretch for hundreds of kilometers and winter silences entire regions, Finland drew a line that could not be misunderstood. Border crossings closed, movement stopped, guards enforced the decision, and something happened that few believed possible. The flow of migrants ended, not reduced, not redirected. Ended. The border became silent. The crisis disappeared from Finland's frontier. This moment did not happen by accident. It was the result of long pressure, clear thinking, and a willingness to make decisions others avoided. To understand how Finland reached this point, we must first understand the world it lives in and the history that shaped its choices. Finland is not like most European countries. It sits at the edge of the continent, sharing a very long land border. With a powerful eastern neighbor, for decades, Finland survived by staying calm, neutral, and careful. It avoided loud alliances. It avoided conflict. It focused on stability. Neutrality was not weakness. It was a strategy built on survival. For many years, that strategy worked. Finland stayed secure while tensions rose elsewhere. But history changes conditions, and when conditions change, old strategies can become dangerous. That moment arrived when war returned to Europe, borders were challenged, security threats changed shape. Pressure no longer arrived only through armies. It arrived through people. Migration in Europe had already been a sensitive issue. Many countries struggled to manage large flows of Muslim migrants from conflict regions. Systems built for limited numbers were stretched beyond capacity. Public trust weakened. Communities felt pressure. Governments promised solutions. But results were limited. Finland watched all of this closely at first. The pressure at Finland's eastern border was small. Then patterns began to appear. Groups of migrants arrived suddenly at remote crossings. Many were from Muslim-majority countries such as Syria, Iraq, Somalia, and Yemen. What made this unusual was that many had lived in Russia for years. They were not fleeing immediate danger. They were moved, guided, and directed toward Finnish border points. This was not chaos. It was coordination. Finnish border guards noticed that the same patterns repeated again and again. Transport appeared organized. Documents raised questions. Routes shifted when crossings closed. This was not random movement. It was pressure applied deliberately. Finnish leaders named the situation clearly. They called it instrumentalized migration. This meant migration used as a tool to pressure and destabilize a country. The goal was not asylum. The goal was leverage. This clarity changed everything. Instead of treating the situation as a humanitarian overflow, Finland treated it as a security challenge. This did not mean compassion vanished. It meant the system was being exploited, and normal rules were no longer working. Border towns felt the strain immediately. Small communities that processed only a few cases each month suddenly faced hundreds of arrivals. Shelters filled, schools were converted into temporary housing. Supplies ran low. Local authorities warned that the system was close to breaking. More importantly, trust was breaking. Citizens began asking a simple question: does the border still mean anything? For years, European leaders had said borders could not simply be closed. They said such actions were unrealistic, illegal, or immoral. Finland decided to test that belief. Step by step, it closed crossings. Pressure moved. Routes changed. Each adjustment confirmed that migration was being directed, not spontaneous. Finally, Finland made the decision that defined everything that followed. It closed the entire land border. All crossings, no exceptions, no gradual process. One clear Action. The effect was immediate. Arrivals stopped. The crisis vanished from the border. The silence returned to the forests and roads that had seen sudden movement only weeks earlier. Europe watched in disbelief. Finland had done what many said could not be done. But Finnish leaders understood something important. Borders reopen, pressure returns. Physical closure alone is temporary. If Finland wanted lasting control, it needed more than fences and guards. It needed law. That realization set the stage for one of the most controversial moves in modern European immigration policy. Finland prepared to change how asylum itself functioned at the border. Not everywhere, not forever. But when migration was used as pressure, this decision would divide. Opinion across Europe, supporters would call it courage. Critics would call it dangerous. But before that debate exploded, Finland focused on one thing only: restoring control. Finland understood that closing the border was only the first step. Physical barriers can stop movement for a moment, but they do not solve the deeper problem. Borders can reopen, pressure can return. If Finland wanted lasting control, it needed something stronger than guards and gates. It needed legal authority that could not be misunderstood. After the full land border was shut, Finnish leaders faced a hard truth. If organized migration resumed the moment the border reopened, the crisis would start all over again. Temporary measures were not enough. Finland needed a rule that could be activated instantly. Migration was used again as pressure. That realization led to one of the most controversial legal moves in modern Europe. The government began drafting a special emergency law designed for one specific situation: migration that was not spontaneous, but deliberately directed to destabilize the country. The law did not change the entire asylum system. Instead, it created an exception for moments when the border itself was being weaponized. The proposal shocked many observers. Under this law, Finnish border guards would be allowed to refuse entry at the border itself. Asylum claims could be rejected immediately if they arrived through a route identified as instrumentalized migration. There would be no long processing, no transfer to reception centers, and no extended appeals. For most European countries, this idea was unthinkable. Asylum systems were built on individual assessment. Each person, each story, each claim. Finland was proposing something different. When migration was clearly used as pressure, the system itself could be paused at the border. Supporters argued that asylum law was never designed for hostile manipulation. It was built for good faith. When that good faith disappears, the system collapses. According to this view, emergency tools were necessary to protect the system from abuse. The law was not unlimited. Finland included clear restrictions. Children could not be turned away. People with serious medical needs had to receive help. Food, water, and basic aid were required before any rejection. The law could only be activated in specific border zones and only for limited periods that had to be renewed. Still, the core power was unprecedented. The border guard's decision would be final. No court review, no appeal process. The decision happened at the line itself. Criticism arrived. Immediately, legal experts warned that the law conflicted with international agreements. Human rights groups argued it violated the principle that people must not be sent back to danger. Academics signed open letters claiming Finland was setting a dangerous example. Some said the threat was exaggerated. They pointed out that the number of arrivals was not massive compared to other European crises. They argued Finland was reacting with fear rather than necessity. The Finnish government did not deny the numbers. Instead, it rejected the framing. This was not about capacity, it was about control. Leaders argued that even small numbers can be destabilizing when they are coordinated. They emphasized that the intent behind the movement mattered more than the size. This was not migration driven by chance. It was migration guided with purpose. The debate inside Finland was intense. Passing the law required a very high level of agreement in parliament. It could not pass with a simple majority. This forced lawmakers to confront the issue openly. There was no hiding behind procedure. Supporters framed the law as temporary, defensive, and necessary. Critics warned it could become permanent. The country was divided, but one thing was clear. Finland was choosing clarity over hesitation. When the vote came, the results surprised many outside the country. The law passed with a strong, supermajority. This was not a narrow political victory. It was a national decision. The border remained closed and the emergency powers were put in place. Yet something unexpected happened next. The law was barely used. Arrivals did not resume. Smugglers changed routes. The pressure disappeared. Officials later admitted that the existence of the law was enough. When rules are clear, behavior changes. This revealed something important. The law was not just a tool. It was a signal it told the world that Finland would not negotiate its border through pressure. It would not process claims delivered as leverage. It would not allow uncertainty to return. For many Europeans, this was deeply unsettling. If one country could suspend asylum, rules under emergency framing, what stopped others from doing the same? Where was the limit? Who decided when an emergency existed? These questions echoed across the continent. The European Union responded carefully. There was concern, but no punishment. New crisis rules quietly allowed more flexibility for states. Under pressure, Finland was not stopped. Its silence mattered. It meant the approach was tolerated. For Finnish citizens, the results were visible. Border towns stabilized. Reception centers closed. Emergency systems were dismantled. The crisis that once dominated discussion faded from daily life. For critics, the cost was less visible, but no less real. People were left outside the system. Routes shifted. Risk increased elsewhere. The human cost did not disappear. It moved. This is the tension at the heart of Finland's choice. Security was restored. Control was regained. But the rules of asylum were changed. Finland solved its immediate crisis by drawing a line that could not be crossed. The question now is what that line means for the future of Europe. If this analysis is helping you understand how power, law, and migration truly interact, support this work by subscribing and stay with us as we continue breaking this story down step by step.